County Public Library. And we have a reoccurring program here at the Worcester branch called Spice It Up, where every month we delve into a different herb or spice. And this month is all about rosemary. So today I'm going to be making a rosemary olive oil bread. And I know that making bread is sometimes daunting for some folks, especially if you've never done it before. So this one is a little easier and a little different. We actually are going to make it in a crock pot rather than in our oven. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm going to have a list of all of the ingredients in the description on our YouTube page, but I'm also going to be saying them out loud while we move along. Our first step is actually to get a large bowl, and we're going to mix together 1 packet of yeast, and you can get these at the grocery store. If you don't have a packet and you actually plan on baking a lot of bread, you can get yeast in a jar, and it's a little more economical if you do it that way. If you use it from a jar, you're going to use 2 1/4 teaspoons of the yeast. So there's our yeast right here. And next we're going to add 1 1/4 cups hot water, which I've already heated this up just in the microwave. You want your water to be hot, but not boiling. So, like warm, but not like where you touch it where it hurts. All right, so now we are also going to add in some sugar, and that's going to help activate the yeast. In this case, we need 1 teaspoon of sugar. And the one thing I will say about baking bread is that it can be a little boring because you do something and then you wait. So here is our water and yeast and sugar mixture. You can already kind of see it's getting bubbly, and the yeast is kind of coming here to the top. That is a good sign. We're actually going to set this aside for about 10 minutes and come back, and then we will move on to part 2. All right. So we've been letting this sit. It is an activated yeast now, so yay. All right, so our next step is we're going to add in 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Not the easiest to pour from. Okay. Okay. And we are also going to add in our rosemary. So we're going to put in about 2 tablespoons, which I've already chopped and portioned out. And if this is your first time working with rosemary, I just thought I would show you. Real easy to strip. You're just going to hold it at the top and kind of pull down until the little leaves are loose. And what you can do with the stem that you have left over is you can throw that in with like a soup or make your own stock and then just discard it before you serve, and you'll impart some of that rosemary flavor. So that's what I typically do. So I'm going to chop this little bit and add it in. All right, this is what we look like right now. We're also going to add in 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. I have this over here. And here is my tablespoon. I'm prepared. So that's 1, 2, 3. And then after this, we're going to add all of our flour. So this recipe calls for 3 1/2 cups of flour. I've already pre-portioned this out. And so here we go. And we're going to mix until it is fully combined. As you go, you may need to work with your hands even. And then we are just going to leave it be. We're going to let it rise for about an hour, and we will be back. So I'm going to keep getting this stirred up, and then I'm going to cover it and leave it in a draft-free area, and again, let it rise for about an hour. All right, well, I will see y'all in an hour after this has had a chance to rise. All right, so our dough has been just resting, rising for the last hour. You can tell it's a little bit larger, so it has risen, yay. That's what we want. And what we're going to do now is just roll it again on a lightly floured surface. And what do you think? We're going to let it rest some more. So let's go ahead and do that. On my cutting board, I've already put some flour on it. It's got a little bit of that rosemary from before. And real easy. We're just going to kind of prep it into the shape that it's going to be. And again, let it rest like this for 20 minutes, I'd say. So it's going to rise just a little bit. This is a denser bread, so we're not going to see the really huge rises. But we're going to let this rest in its circular shape that it'll take in the crock pot. And I will be back again in about 20 minutes. All right, see you then. All right, our dough has been rising for another 20 minutes, and now it is ready to head to our crock pot. Now you can see my crock pot right behind me has some paper coming out of it. This is parchment paper. Parchment paper is different from wax paper. Wax paper shouldn't get that hot. So parchment paper in the crock pot is gonna help us like lift that the bread out real easy when we're done. And you can buy parchment paper in the same area of the grocery store that you would find aluminum foil. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and crank us up to high, and I'm going to put our dough in. And next we're going to just top it with another 1 to 2 tablespoons of rosemary, as well as another half teaspoon of salt. So we'll get that nice rosemary and salt crust on our bread when it is done. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so I am going to get a damp paper towel. We're going to place it over the top and put the lid on. The point of the damp paper towel is so that it'll capture any moisture that might then drop onto the bread, making it not as nice and crisp. So I'm going to do that. We're going to let this bake on high in our crock pot. Again, that's kind of weird for bread, for 2 hours. When it comes out, it might still be a little pale. If you wanted to, throw it in your oven on broil to get it that darker color. That's the one downside of using a crock pot, but otherwise it's that easy. So I'm going to be back to show you our beautiful loaf in 2 hours. So here is our bread. I've gone ahead and pulled it out and sliced it already. It smells wonderful. Lots of rosemary scents coming from it. So again, it is a little pale if you see the top. So if I had wanted to, I could just throw this in a standard oven on broil for a couple of minutes, and that would give it that kind of golden color that we traditionally associate with baked bread. All right, in the next section of this video, I'm going to show you how to make a quick little olive oil herb dip that you can use with a bread like this. But certainly this is good plain or just with a smear of butter. So now that our bread is done baking inside our crock pot, I'm going to show you a quick herby oil dipping sauce that you can make really simply. And we are only going to need a couple of ingredients. So I've got a bowl here. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of extra virgin olive oil. next up, I am going to add some dried oregano. Let me change our position. All right, specifically, we need a 1/4 teaspoon of dried oregano. We're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of dried basil. We're going to add just enough red pepper flakes to taste. Obviously, if you like spice, add a little bit more. We'll just tap a little bit in. We're going to add 3 cloves of fresh garlic. So that works out to about, if you have minced like this, about 1/2 teaspoon each. So I'm just going to do kind of like heaping 1/4 teaspoons here. Nice and garlicky. We have the recommendation for for a full teaspoon, excuse me, of Parmesan cheese, just the shredded grated kind that you can find at the store. I'm just going to eyeball that. Okay. And then, of course, we want to add a little bit more fresh rosemary, which I left right over here. My bad. So we don't need too terribly much more, maybe about 1/2 teaspoon worth. And we'll just chop that up. Now, I am not a huge salt person, but if you are a salt person, you may also want to add about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt to this as well. Then you're just going to stir. Now, the primary smell that's coming through is, I'd say, the garlic. So here is our dipping sauce. Certainly, this rosemary bread is great with butter on it, or even just plain. But if you're having a little get-together and you're like, oh, I want some dipping sauce, this is something fun and simple to make. And it's got a lot of those Italian seasonings. And again, it's going to highlight that fresh rosemary that we've been working with. All right. Thank you for joining me for today's Library Kitchen video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a wonderful summer. Bye-bye.